I don't know if I told you guys this before, but when I was actually 15, I learned that maybe I could make myself grow taller. This was 2004.
You're way ahead of your time. Jeez.
Yeah, I was really. So I went to
you could have been a subject or natty or not video. If you were proceeded there, I could be like, look at this guy, he gained like 4 inches.
No. Hopefully Greg would start first. But anyway.
Oh, now I know. You were unsuccessful. That's where the PE came from.
Exactly. I wanted to mention this idea of growing taller when you're younger. So I did some research in the last like a week and a half. Actually, was not inspired by who mentioned it in our group convo. Someone, Steve, or
I think it was me.
Yeah, Derek.
Well, I'm sure we've all discussed it, but I know it's a topic that I often touch on, but I've never done a dedicated video to it. So I thought this would be a potentially good.
I think a lot of teenagers are going to copy instantly, when they see extra height. I would have, I'm 175, so I have a few inches to gain. That's why I moved to Thailand, because the average height is so tall in Holland.
Yeah, because in the Netherlands, it's the tallest average height in the world.
What is it? This much taller than I am. So, yeah. And gaining biceps apparently doesn't give you, any more height. So, unfortunately, I just moved countries, and then everybody, like the average height is like this much below me. So now I feel the same as all the other Dutch people.
I felt that way in Tokyo. When you go to Tokyo, you feel like a monster on the street. Like I felt like Godzilla, and there were no clothes in the whole of Tokyo that I could wear.
No, forget it.
What I discovered was this. So I don't know if I told you guys this before, but when I was actually 15, I learned that maybe I could make myself grow taller. This was 2004.
You're way ahead of your time. Jeez.
Yeah, I was really. So I went to.
You could have been a subject or natty or not video. If you were proceeded there, I could be like, look at this guy, he gained like 4 inches.
No. Hopefully Greg would start first. But anyway.
Oh, now I know. You were unsuccessful. That's where the PE came from.
Exactly. So no, but listen to this. Oh, I will talk about PE also, by the way. So so what I did was I went to a hospital in Dubai and I had my growth plates. I had an X-ray done, and the guy told me conclusively that my growth plates had fused. So I didn't do it. I stayed natural until I was 22 or so. Now, looking back, I realized that the growth plates fusing is not such a black or white concept. There are levels of fusing. And the fusing, so how do they stop women that have what's called precocious puberty from being too short? So when women are shorter than men because their estradiol obviously is higher, and usually they often get puberty before us. So the estradiol closes the growth plates. How do they deal with this with women? They use gonadotropin releasing hormone agonists, so that their pituitary doesn't produce the hormones to induce puberty. With men, they've been using luteinizing hormone analogs, and they've been using eventually aromatase inhibitors, because it turns out that it's not just the whole puberty that stops the growth plates from being able to grow continuously, but rather estradiol peaking. So I looked at some studies to see how the most interesting area to study here is what's called idiopathic short stature, ISS. Idiopathic short stature means they don't know exactly why they're short. So it's not a specific GH deficiency, not a specific mutation in the IGF-1. And when people have this, growth hormone is less effective for them than people who have specifically a growth hormone deficiency.
Right.
And it's been shown in people with this that when they combine an aromatase inhibitor and growth hormone treatment, they get significantly more results. Like, for example, they get like 5 centimeters more in a year and a half, 30 centimeters compared to 25 of just GH and 20 of just an AI.
Oh, wow.
So quite a significant difference.
That's significant.
So then,
which AIs in particular? Any particular or any kinds of AI, whether that's Arimidex, Arimistane, Aromasin, Letrozole, or some of the other,
It's a good question you ask. I've noticed an unusual amount of letrozole being used, and the doses they use are really high, like 1 milligram each time, or no, 2.5 milligrams each time.
Outside of full dose, right?
Oh yeah, heavy doses of letrozole. And letrozole.
How is the joint integrity of these kids?
This is a great question you ask. So what they did find out is that the kids that take the aromatase inhibitors end up with dysfunction in their spinal plates. I forgot what they call it, but basically they have slight issues with morphology in it. Similar to someone that had a chronic illness as a child.
The castrati, they have like osteoporosis in teen years just because of
low estrogen, right? Yeah.
But they get taller. They have like disproportionately long bones, but then the integrity of them is extremely poor.
Are you talking about giants in general?
No, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about individuals who have like either pituitary adenomas, things that may otherwise like shut down their entire HPTA throughout their entire adolescence, and then they don't go through puberty, and they have, or castrati who are manually castrated to preserve their angelic singing voices, those kind of individuals, and then they grow taller than predicted. And then when you actually look at their bones, though, after they've died, their bone quality is extremely poor.
So this is an interesting concept. So you know that androgenic signaling also increases bone density. So having low estradiol does worsen it, but so does androgenic signaling. For some reason, many of the studies on idiopathic short stature people taking AIs show that they don't have reduced bone density. But these studies tend to be a year and a half long or so. I assume in the long term that if they continue to lower estradiol, that'll happen. But what we do see is this change in morphology that's very minor. It's like a 30% changes on the edge of the spinal plates, small things like that. But what's really interesting is this idea that if your estradiol never peaks, your plates never fuse. So this is how some people that started, for example, taking growth hormone in their early 20s, or even just some people in general growing in their 20s, because they never had estradiol peak. I had estradiol peak quite early. I developed some kind of pubertal gynecomastia. And I think that played a large role in my growth halting at the age of 14.
Probably.
Or 14 and a half. And if you're obese, if you're chubby or obese, you're going to have more aromatization, meaning you're going to have higher estradiol, meaning you're going to get earlier fusing also. What were you saying, Steve?
Oh, yeah, I was wondering if like my halting of growth started when I started bodybuilding at 15 years old.
You did dirty bulk when you were 15?
No, we didn't have, I'm dating myself. I'm 37. So back then we didn't have internet to find the information. We only had gym rats. And of course, the gym rats, were not really bodybuilders. So they would not even give you diet advice. So we would just eat, but it would not have a lot of protein. So I remember after starting, I would track my height every year because I was already a little bit shorter than, what I was intended to be, which probably comes from nutritional deficiencies. And then, of course, you start, vigorously training. I can't really say it's bodybuilding at 15 years old, but by the time I was 18, I was definitely bodybuilding, going to the gym 5 times a week. So I wonder how much of that, you're taking nutrients away from muscle building, which are, you could use for height, or calories away. Of course, bone mineralization is calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, vitamin D3, vitamin K, they all contribute to bone mineralization. But I wonder how much of the nutrients I took away just by, going to the gym and training as insane as I thought I was back then. So I didn't grow much after becoming a bodybuilder.
Are you shorter than your father?
Yeah, well.
Yeah, they call that non-familial short stature. When you're, if you're shorter than the average of both of your parents by 6.5 centimeters or so, they consider you to have that.
I'm around the average of my parents because my mom is way shorter than I am. She's pretty short.
The other advantage of adding in an AI. Oh, by the way, one caveat I should mention: all of the studies show that the earlier the growth hormone is used, even in growth hormone deficient children, the better the results will be. So the earliest FDA-approved use, I think, is now at 4 years old for, I think, growth hormone deficient children. Now, for people with just short, because, by the way, just to make clear, idiopathic short stature literally just means you're short. It doesn't mean you have any genetic problems. So it's a form of enhancement rather than solving a problem when you do that with them. But even for them, the younger you are, and the same applies for the aromatase inhibitor. Now, the interesting thing, though, is about this aromatase inhibitor. Taking it will increase your testosterone. Right, because estradiol is a negative feedback signal to the hypothalamus. So it's also going to increase their testosterone all those years, and will probably therefore yield some minor increase in penile length or width. I should mention. Yeah, that's another side effect. Because think about
did you or did you not?
I didn't use it. I didn't.
Did you dabble in the aromatase inhibitors?
Although I will say one thing I didn't mention on the PE video. Later in my 20s, when I did use a lot of hormones and growth hormone, I noticed some other increase in size that seems permanent. But I don't know if that had to do. I always say the growth hormone didn't affect it, but maybe it did in some way.
I think so, because I took growth hormone before bed for like 2 years straight with Cialis. just to, give a little bit of stimulation at night when you get most of your erections, and I gained some size.
See, the problem is this, that
it's just, it's noticeable. It's measurable on a, on a what is it called? I don't know.
Does it still, you still have it now after losing the muscle?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's really interesting. So some people claim that. I don't think it's really that true, because so number one, children's penile growth happens while the baby's while the son is in the womb. It happens particularly between weeks 12 and 24. And it depends on the amount of androgens in the mother. And it continues thereafter. So the first like 4 months of a child being alive, they have higher androgens actually signaling. Then it decreases to prepubertal levels and stays that way until puberty. The higher it seems the androgenic signaling is during those years, the higher the penis size seems to grow. It's actually not very well studied. I was looking at it just before our call today.
If you have no DHT in puberty, then you basically just end up with a micro penis, pretty much guaranteed. Like you have a definitively differentiated sexual characteristics where you're identifiable as a man pretty easily. But if you have like a 5AR gene mutation or something, I don't know, you'd probably have to like manually administer DHT at that point, but then you would be shutting down your estradiol, I guess, consequently, which then, I don't know, I guess indirectly you might end up growing taller and getting a bigger dick at the same time. I don't know.
This is what you mentioned is actually in the literature. It's a 5AR polymorphism associated with that causes some people to develop that.
Yeah, pseudo-hermaphroditism.
So the only treatments they have for that is applying DHT topically to the penile area or injecting them with testosterone. Those are the two.
I looked into all this stuff when I was looking into finasteride research heavily, and you see like these pseudo hermaphrodites. They actually end up, interestingly, some of them actually end up more muscular than their siblings, even just by the subsequent increase in testosterone that they get from the total lack of 5AR. And then, but they have no temporal recession. They have not much facial hair, not much, no penis growth. They end up with micro penises a lot of the time. So, but I don't know.
You can imagine that the aromatase inhibitor plays a role here also, because that automatically causes more 5AR conversion of testosterone to dihydrotestosterone.
True. Yeah, that's true.
On the boards back in the day, we used to think it was the dihydrotestosterone in puberty that caused the major growth. So there was a subforum on Thunders called Chemical PE. And basically everything that was tested there to some degree failed, because it seemed that we were all too old for it.
Yeah.
But when I looked into the research, it doesn't seem that they have many ideas. But I mean, if I had a son and it was legal, I might consider giving him an AI at a low dose.
Yeah.
That's an AI, but growth hormone may be more dangerous a little bit, because there is some research that shows that children who are given, because by the way, they're given like 120 units 3 times a week. That's what they're given in growth hormone. It's a lot. So there are some studies that show that those people are more likely to develop certain kinds of cancers later in life.
So
but I would consider.
With liver issues, where they're growth hormone deficient, and they also have liver issues, they're prescribed Increlex or Iplex at pretty high dosages as well. And then, when you look at the inserts, you see that the Increlex treatment or the Iplex treatment might result in hypoglycemia and all the laundry list of side effects. It's when you have some of these genetic defects, the treatments are pretty extensive sometimes.
Now, you would think that lowering estradiol would cause IGF-1 to lower when people are using an AI and growth hormone. But there are some studies that show the opposite.